Hello and welcome everyone to Birthing New Earth, where courageous individuals are stepping up to ask the hard questions, look at the tough decisions, and make responsible choices necessary to leave a sustainable living legacy of thriving life on this planet for the next 7 generations and beyond. I'm your host, Kathy Forrest, founder of Celestial Forest Institute, and it is my deep pleasure to be here today with my friend and colleague, Kaylin Castell. Welcome, Kaylin. So happy you're back.
Thank you, Kathy. So happy to be back with you.
Awesome. Kaylin is the co-founder of Venus Alchemy and the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. She's a Magdalene and Divine Creation High Priestess in the lineage line of Nicole Christine. In addition to writing monthly celestial timings for nearly 25 years, she enjoys sharing these mysteries through personal readings and teaching, both online and in personal events, changing lives and perspectives from the visionary understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. And once you hear all Kaylin has to tell us, you will want to check her out at kaylincastell.com and venusalchemy.com. So Kaylin, I'm so excited to have you here. I'm not going to mention the topic because we've already determined that it's a different title than what we have.
The title was so good.
Okay, I'll say it.
It's such a good title.
Okay, New Earth Alchemy, guided by the 2020 planetary alignments. And Kaylin, this is a scary question, but it's like, is all of this happening because of what's happening out there? Lord, help. What can you
Yes.
do? What can we do? Save us.
So, right? So there are certain things that happen that we don't have any control over except our response to it, right? So we're going to talk about that and how we respond to it because we're informing the mysteries as they're informing us.
Right.
And one of the things I want to say is that this approach, this astrological approach, shamanic astrology approach, is not predictive. So we've been talking about the year 2020 and the amazing alignments and everything going on for a while, as you know, Kathy, because you've heard me talk about this. But we had no idea exactly what it was going to be.
Exactly.
So what's happened and is happening and is going to probably continue to happen because we don't know what's next because things just keep unfolding. Is just mind-blowing and amazing. And really, when we understand what the intent is, then we can see why this is happening. So I'm going to share about that. Yeah.
Perfect.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just I also talking about this as connecting with the cosmic birthing process of the new earth, and we're going to see how that's the case as we go along. But the first thing I wanted to do is to just bring everybody present and connected to the mysteries, the biggest mysteries I feel that are going on right now, and that is working with the circle of grandmothers, being the grandmothers that are on the planet that are guiding us and supporting us with their wisdom, as well as the ones that are not in physical form, but are still guiding us and supporting us when we tap into them and connect with them. So I invite everyone to just place your hands on your heart. And recently I was reminded that when we touch our hearts, we actually activate that magnetic field. And the heart field that goes around our body is like many feet out from us. And then when we energize that, it just energizes that heart energy. So then that places this prayer in the energy of the heart. And from the place of love was the thing that we most need now on the planet.
Exactly.
So here's our prayer to the yes, exactly. Right. So our prayer to the grandmothers, and at the end, I'll say it as I, but I'm saying it as I for all of us. So let's just begin. Here we go. Grandmothers, wise and loving ones, you who know the ways of love, the ways of peace, the ways of sustainability and responsible stewardship, the ways of wisdom that keep us in balance and harmony with our Earth Mother, living joyfully with all life, the ways of the rivers, lakes, oceans, the trees, the plants and animals, the ways of the natural cycles, including the ways of the sun and the moon within the seasonal cycles, the ways of all the planets and stars, the ways of the seasons and their cycles of birth, growth, death, and rebirth, the ways of light and dark and the gifts that come from each, the ways of duality within great mystery and how to move beyond them, the ways of magic and alchemy, the ways of time and how to create new, nurturing, and sustainable timelines, the ways of inspired action through love, enhancing and nurturing all life, the ways of health and well-being, helping us to be the most effective and efficient in joyously living our life purpose, fostering strong community, nourishing and supporting everyone to thrive. Sacred grandmothers, guide me with all your wisdom to learn these ways so that I now help bring forth the new earth within me, wisely benefiting all life everywhere. It is done. It is so. And so it is with ease and grace. Blessed be.
Beautiful.
Such a great prayer.
Right?
Yes.
Ah,
Right?
you're so good.
Okay. So the first thing I always like to tell people or remind people, because sometimes you need to be reminded. Actually, sometimes I need to be reminded, and that is to let go of the need to understand everything I'm going to say with your mind. If this is the first time you're hearing this kind of information, you are not going to understand it all with your mind, especially if you're not, somebody who studied astrology or how the night sky works or the seasons work or any of that. So, but there are lots of different ways of knowing. So I invite you to let go of the need to have it like that linear knowing,
Right?
that logical, rational, linear mind way of knowing, and allow your intuitive way of knowing, your emotional way of knowing, and even your physical in the body way of knowing. Allow yourself to really feel into the mystery and trust your inner knowing that it goes beyond logic and reason. And so hopefully then this will be something that inspires you going forward. So I always like to start with the largest context of what's going on for us. And what we're seeing here is this is called the galactic alignment. This purple line is the plane of the galaxy, and it's right in the heart of the Milky Way that we look out. When we look out into the sky, we see the Milky Way band of stars, that thick band of stars. So that is the plane of the galaxy. And then the plane of our solar system, the path the planets move, and you can see the sun right on that path, but it's also right at the intersection point. So this is what's called the galactic cross. It's near galactic center, and the December solstice sun is currently rising here every year for a while. And in fact, this is another way of looking at it, because the constellations, there's the constellation of the Archer and the Scorpion on either side of this galactic cross. So when you're looking out into the sky, if you happen to know those constellations, you know you're looking at the galactic cross. It's pretty cool. And those are easy, that actually both those constellations are pretty easy to spot once you know what they look like in the sky. So the 0 Capricorn point, when the sun reaches 0 Capricorn, this is where the sun is. And literally, it takes about 72 years for it to move 1 whole degree. And so we could say at least from 1962 to 2034, the sun is rising on this cross. We could extend it a little further from 1926 to 2070. The sun is rising on this cross, and it is the representation of the end and beginning of an entire 26,000 year cycle. It takes 26,000 years for the sun to come back in this season for at least 72 years or 144 years, however you decide you want to count that. And this is the largest context of what's happening for us now, because this is something the Mayans were tracking at the 26,000 year cycle. So we know and Plato called this a great year. Like the 26,000 year cycle as being this great year. You can divide it into months and seasons, just like you can a year. And it is way bigger than the age of Aquarius. And I know a lot of people are tuned into that and are aware of that. This is actually bigger than that, because if we're looking at the age of Aquarius, or so-called age of Aquarius, it's only a 2,160 year cycle. This is a 26,000 year cycle, way bigger. So just to give that context, and this is part of what's happening, is we're at the ending of something and the beginning of something, but we're in that in-between space where it hasn't fully ended and it hasn't fully begun. So it's that place of great alchemy, and a lot of things are changing. I also just wanted to share with you the other galactic cross because there's something very significant going on there. And it might have already happened by the time this video airs, but still worth knowing about because it's the same amount of time, opposite place of the sky. Instead of at the center of the galaxy, it's at the edge of the galaxy. So again, the plane of our galaxy, this is the Milky Way band. It's not quite as dark a band of stars. And the plane of the solar system or the path of the planets. And every June solstice from 1962 to 2034, minimum window, the zero Cancer point, that's where the sun is rising, right on this cross. And again, something that can only happen in this way every 26,000 years. So
Kaylin, what is
it's
the
like the
date?
biggest.
What is the date for that? Do you know the exact date?
For the June solstice?
Yeah.
What you're asking? So this year, the June solstice is on June 20th.
So,
And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment.
so we'll be in that. We are, just for our listeners, we're just at the edge of that window. This is going to air on the 22nd, and you're first up. So we're
Right.
right at the edge of when that happened. Very cool.
Beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, so every year, and we're going to look a little bit more deeply into this part of the sky because there's some other amazing things that are happening here. But just to know that this is happening every June solstice and also every December solstice at the galactic center, that these solstices, and interestingly, the solstice, for those who might not know, is solstice literally means standstill of the sun, meaning the sun rises in the exact same place for 3 days. And actually really close for about 3 weeks. It's like the pendulum that swings back and forth. So it gets to its furthest northern point at the June solstice in the northern hemisphere, and its furthest southern point at the December solstice. And it's like slows down as it gets to that point. It stops and then it shifts direction. So at the equinoxes, literally is when the sun is moving the fastest across the sky. So you have a lot of time to celebrate solstices, not as much time to celebrate equinoxes.
Right.
Based on how fast it's moving and that sort of thing. So the June solstice of 2020 features this annular solar eclipse. And you saw the cross that it was in the previous slide. So this cross right here. Well, these are the constellations around the galactic cross. And what you're seeing here is the sun and the moon together exact on the cross at the June solstice. And this is the center point of a 4-week eclipse window. And I always think of an eclipse window. It starts on June 4th and ends on June 5th and ends on July 4th. And usually it's only 2 weeks. So this center point with an annular eclipse, the ring of fire, meaning that the sun is on the cross and the moon is crossing over the face of the sun, creating the sun being eclipsed by the moon, but the moon is far away from the earth, so it's not quite big enough to completely cover the sun like in a total solar eclipse where it goes dark. And there's this whole interesting, amazing sort of thing that happens in a total solar eclipse. And an annular solar eclipse has its own unique magic that happens. Anyway, this is the last one we're going to have at a June solstice in this Saros cycle for 26,000 years. So it's really big. And you can see there's an image here. It's this is Orion, or the High Man, as the Celts called this constellation. I often think it could be a woman because you can see that it looks like there's it looks like it has that waisty thing going on.
Right.
But, we live in patriarchal culture, so they named it after a guy. What can we say?
Right.
Anyway, but Orion is reaching up to the galactic cross. And so the Celts saw that whenever there was the sun on the hand of the High Man at a seasonal point, it was a major turning of an age. So now not only do we have the sun, but we have the moon with the sun on the hand of the High Man at this June solstice in 2020. Wow. So the thing is that you don't even have to work with it directly, like say, because we won't see it in the US, depending on where you are in the world, you might have visibility, but The main thing is that if we know that we're in the window of this, and whenever we find this information out, we can tune in, because it is an alchemical cauldron, the Ring of Fire. And there is a video that I created. It's like a 9-minute video on the Ring of Fire and some of the mythology that can go with that. That I'll send you, Kathy, the link so that you can include that, people, if they want to watch it, to get that information. It's just about any annual or solar eclipse, but since, you know, we're having one, or we'll have just had one when people get this, then you know, they can have this information. So it's pretty remarkable time just looking at this piece. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So these are the eclipses: the June 5th eclipse that's already happened, then the June 20th eclipse, and then on July 4th, there's an eclipse. And then at the end of the year, we'll have November 30th and December 14th, we'll have a total solar eclipse just before the solstice. Usually what happens is, in a year, it'll either be the solar eclipses that are featured, or it'll be the lunar eclipses that are featured. This year it happens to be solar eclipses that are featured. So what's interesting though about the July 4th eclipse, for those people who live in the US, is that happens to be the US birthday. And the sun will be exactly on the natal sun of the US chart at the time of the eclipse. The moon will be opposite. And so it's activating something very personal for the US in this particular eclipse, as this eclipse window closes. So what we can do is, through our intention and attention, we can energize that perhaps the blueprint of the earth, of the US, right? So it's about equality for everyone. It's about, there's all these high ideals that were listed that have never been followed. Time for that to happen. So maybe we can hold the energy for that, like really put in our intention around that at this eclipse, so that anything that's in the way of it comes to light, so that it can no longer be sustained in the darkness of, you know, the nefariousness that's been going on behind the scenes that most of us only maybe have some idea about, or some of us have no idea about. Right? I'm always learning new things, and I'm like, are you kidding me? That's what's been going on? Oh my God. That's terrible. Anyway, so what we can do is, we probably can't go out and change that, but what we can do is work with it within ourselves, so that if we're holding a high vibration, I'm going to talk about that a little more in a minute, but if we're holding that energy, then it can no longer be sustained in our outer reality. Yes. So we do have a lot of power. We just have to remember that. So now we're going to bring this back down to something that's happening right now. All of 2020 there's this triple planetary alignment: Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto. You can see Jupiter is bigger than Saturn, and Saturn's bigger than Pluto. So that those are somewhat to scale, you know, I guess, and how they would be out in space and how you would see them. In 2008, Pluto went into Capricorn, and that was also the year we had the first financial crash. And ultimately what we could say is that Pluto is really about, how do we go into a metamorphosis? How do we die to who we've been so we can be reborn to who we really are? So that it's like the caterpillar that's gestating and preparing to birth into a butterfly. Saturn is about wisely creating new structures, but first you have to tear down the old ones, or you have to dismantle them or dissolve them, or somehow they have to be out of the way so that the new structures can come in. And hopefully the new structures are wise, sustainable, work for everyone. You know, that we can see there's a big dismantling that's been going on, even in, you know, more, it's been accelerated this year with Pluto and Saturn being together, and Jupiter's comes along and expands all that, expands our vision of what's possible, and also expands the actions that we're taking that helps to bring that vision into form. And it's been 733 years since all three of these planets came together in the sign of Capricorn. And Capricorn is the grandmothers, the wise ones. How do we build the sustainable structures that work for us? That support us, that are good for the earth and good for those who live on the earth, including humans, but also including all the plants and animals and the seen and the unseen, all of that. Yeah. So is there any questions you might have for me as we're going through this?
Wow. I'm still just, I think I'm like everyone else. I'm just taking it all in. I wouldn't even know what question to ask yet. But let me look at some of
Okay.
the ones we talked about. Um, well, obviously, but speak into this just a little bit more so folks can understand it. How is this particular alignment helping to facilitate that new earth process? Like bring it down into layman's terms. What is all that?
Okay. So I'm okay. Okay. Yes. Oh, let me first just say that Pluto reminds us that we are caterpillars becoming butterflies. So that we're in that, and we're in the cocoon. We can't get out, and the things that are happening on the planet right now are beyond our control. But they are helping us to go through that gestation process. And then when the butterfly is birthed, what if there's another butterfly that's there when the butterfly comes out of its cocoon, then it would say to the newly birthed butterfly, everything you learned as a caterpillar doesn't apply anymore. It's like a whole new world. So that's what we're going toward. I just wanted to say that. Oh, let me just go to, no, yeah, I will get to your question. Just
That's
hang
cool.
on just a sec.
Keep going.
I have some slides that really speak to that. So I just want to bring in this, this idea of the wisdom keepers, the wise ones, the circle of grandmothers and the elders. We really, this is the time to access that wisdom that lives inside of us, but also how we can maybe access where it's been outside of us. And so I thought Socrates really had it right when he said the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing.
Right.
Right. So it's like letting go of everything we think we know so that we can be, you know, wowed with what is really true. So these old structures are crumbling and they need to, and that does create chaos and confusion. We can see that happening right now. And
Right.
that is for the purpose of a new birth, something could come through that can come, but not without the dismantling first. So what would it take to allow ourselves to truly trust this process? That's a great question to be with. How do we trust this process? Well, we're in the year 2020. And so in a sense, we could say we're pivoting between 2020 hindsight, because now we're halfway through the year of 2020,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we can look back and say, oh, here are some things that have been happening. And what's the 2020 vision? And maybe we had a vision coming into this year, but maybe that vision is changing now because of the events that have been taking place on the earth. So hindsight is 2020 and vision. It's like the two things are interrelated. So how do we live in the present moment? How do we learn from any mistakes we've made? How do we see these mistakes or these challenges as valuable growth opportunities? And what are we visioning and feeling for our desired future? Those are some things to work with. So now I'm getting to your question.
Great.
And
Cool.
so basically, on January 12th, Saturn and Pluto were conjunct exact. And it's the only exact conjunction, but they're literally within 3 or 4 degrees from the time of this recording, pretty much until the end of the year. Definitely like November, December, it's within 5 degrees. So they're very close. So on July 1st, well, at the time of this recording, Saturn's in the first degree of Aquarius, retrograde is coming back into Capricorn. So it'll be with Pluto again, really close. It's still pretty close, but in a different sign. So this is interestingly around the time that the whole COVID-19 was coming into our awareness. And literally on January 12th was when China publicly shared the genetic sequence of the virus. And it was also around that time it started getting more real. Like what's really,
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't have any idea of it until like March, like how,
Right.
you know, how it was such a big deal. Because, you know, we've lived through SARS and MERS and other virus outbreaks and Ebola and stuff like that. And it never touched me personally in any way. So I was like, kind of like, yeah, it's something out there, but it's not a big deal to me. And so this became very personal and disrupted our lives in a very big way. And we can see that this sharing of the genetic sequence exact on January 12th. I mean, we really can't make up this stuff.
Nope.
Like, oh, Saturn, Pluto are conjunct. It's like, yep, now we're going to dismantle your life as you know it so that something new can come in. And you have no control. You cannot affect the outer global events. All you can do is respond. from your own awareness, from your own inner whatever, right?
Mhm.
So, um, so, so staying in a place of calmness, ideally, is what we can do. On March 21st, we had Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto with Saturn, all very close, and you could see Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn in the sky. It was pretty spectacular. I was
Mhm.
watching that. We had a big event planned. We had to postpone. Hopefully, we'll get to do it in September. And Kathy, you and I had a big event we had planned in April, had to be postponed. Hopefully, we'll get to do it in July. And but this was around the time that Mars was in the mix and activating more of this, like, what's the dismantling process. And the lockdowns really started in earnest around that time when this was happening. Then on April 4th, we had this world peace meditation. And it was because it was the first Jupiter and Pluto conjunction in 13 years, and the first one in like 248 years in Capricorn. So it happens every 13 years, but it's 248 years for Pluto to come back into a sign. So to have this Jupiter Pluto conjunction happening at this time, pretty amazing. And that they used it as an alchemy, like, oh, let's do a world peace meditation. I tuned into that, and what was really fun for me, yes, yeah, and I just had a grandson who was the mom who was in labor on April 4th, and he was born a few hours into April 5th, like midday in April 5th. And I had kept saying to him, you just ride in on that wave of peace. And he did. He came in. So it's like, these are things we can work with when we know what's going on. And Jupiter Pluto conjunctions, I do have an intent of one of these days. I was born with one, and so in Leo, not in Capricorn, but in Leo. And there, I've always had people look at that and go, oh, this is like remarkable. You'll always be taken care of. You'll always this, you'll always that. And I'm like, yeah, it has its challenges. So there is the more alchemical side of that people tune into, but there's also, sometimes we have to go through the darker energies of it to get to that more lighter, more alchemical, that transformation, turning those base elements into gold, so to speak. There'll be two more, June 30th. So as this is airing, it'll be just a few days after this airs, and then November 12th. And so these are times we can use to work with, to really put our intentions out there and to expand that energy in an amazing way. And Pluto is really about exposing anything in the way, any fears, any shadow beliefs, any limiting beliefs, anything that keeps it from coming into form. And Jupiter is there then to expand the possibilities of what that's about. So, so we've got that coming. And then just by March 26th, this was interesting that 1.7 billion people were in some form of lockdown. And then by the first week of April, almost half the world, or more than half the world population, 3.9 billion people were in some kind of lockdown. And that's never happened on the planet that we know of, that we have any history for, any way of keeping track of anything that's happened. So again, we can look back and go, that's how this is manifesting. But when we were trying to look forward, I would have never guessed this was what was going to happen. It just wouldn't be the thing I was thinking about. So hindsight. And so I had to put in a little humor here. This dog is looking at the hind end of these dogs. That's me, Collie Beagle, and the dog doctor is saying, your hindsight is 2020. It made me laugh.
Right, for sure. Jeez.
Right, we gotta have some humor about this, right? So birthing this new Earth. Basically in this pregnant void, this pregnant place that we've been in, like in this lockdown, in this place where we're not going places, or we've had our lives pretty limited. And really, literally, a pregnant woman has to kind of slow her life down a little bit to take care of her growing baby inside of her. And so I started thinking about the phases of labor, right? And each phase has its own, takes its time, whatever time it has, and it's different for everyone. That needs to happen. And if we think about that, part of what we're doing is cultivating a new vision for a new way of life, Jupiter, we're looking at what are the new structures, and they are growing behind the scenes. They're in the belly, in the womb, right? We're growing them now, but we don't necessarily know what they're going to look like until they're birthed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's coming in process. And then Pluto is like, okay, so what needs to die? What needs to be felt? And in labor, especially in transition, when you go through that transition phase where the birth is about to happen, and there's a lot of fear. Sometimes there's a lot of anger. It's like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm enough pain. Thank you very much. I'm ready to be just like, kill me now, or
right,
or make it go away, or something like And this is where our breathing and calming practices come in, and it can be helpful to get us through that part. But it's normal. So we see this kind of happening, and like riots happening, and people taking to the streets because their anger is building up. So we don't know what other phases of this may still be in process, but this is kind of what we're seeing happening on the planet right now. And so here's the baby in the cosmic womb and the baby in the mother's womb. And we're really literally, in the terms of birthing a new earth, we are in that process, totally in that process. And we have help from Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto to help us with that process and to remind us that we must feel what we feel. We don't go and take it out on people. That's actually not a really good way to do it. But if we have grief, if we have anger, if we have frustration, there are healthy ways of expressing that allow us to move it out of our body, so it's no longer something that's driving our choices and what we're doing. That's really the opportunity. So I want to just talk a little bit about, this is a scientific principle called the Meissner effect. And I learned about this in the 70s when I was in college. And I thought it was pretty cool. And so it has stuck with me. And it's really the invincibility in the quantum physics of superconductivity. And so I've been like, I am a superconductor. I'm really energizing this superconductive thing. So in an ordinary conductor, any magnetic field can penetrate it. And all the electrons are pretty scattered and chaotic. And what they found is when they're creating a superconductor, that chaos actually increases and gets way more chaotic before it finally starts getting coherent and lining up and becoming a superconductor. So we're really in this major phase transition right now where everything is more chaotic than ever. And all we need are just a few people to come into that more coherent state, and then everything will drop into place. Kind of magical and
yes.
kind of amazing. So in a superconductor, coherent collective functioning of the electrons spontaneously excludes an external magnetic field and maintains its impenetrable status, meaning that you cannot interrupt or interfere with that super coherent field. And so if we can create that within ourselves, then all the nonsense that's going on out there will not impact us.
Penetrate. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So that's what we want to be cultivating. We want to become a superconductor. Mm-hmm. And what I love about the superconductor is that it can actually levitate.
Right.
Right. You can introduce a magnetic field or a beam of light, and that it doesn't affect its ability to levitate. So our task at this time is to really develop our high vibrational superpowers of love. And, they have a way of measuring the frequencies of different emotional experiences that we can have. So like depression and apathy and anger and, negativity or whatever it is that we might be feeling, those are pretty low vibrational energies, but you get to love and it's pretty high. And then above that, there's actually some that go even above that. So we want to look at those and cultivate that. So whatever we can do to cultivate greater love within ourselves helps us to be a superconductor, to create that coherent field within us. And then that's what radiates out to everybody else. So as I was saying, the phase transition to superconductor goes from chaos to coherence. And that's part of what happens in labor. We go from chaos, like, oh, I think I'm going to die. This is horrible. This is awful. And then suddenly we have the beautiful baby in our arms and we're so happy. And it's like all that challenge of being in labor and going through that process, gone. It's like now we just have the beautiful new birth of whatever it is that we're birthing to be with.
Beautiful.
So that's our opportunity. Yeah. So part of this, you know, and because this is so much happening in the Capricorn archetypal energy, and we'll talk a little bit about Gemini too, because there's something going on there. But our wisdom, to cultivate our wisdom, is to attend to our health, to our wealth, and our overall well-being. And wealth, not just money, because it goes beyond the financial aspect of it, but it includes the wealth of having, you know, being in a healthy physical body and a healthy mental body, and a healthy emotional body, and spiritual health and well-being, and experiencing joy and pleasure in fulfilling relationships. So that is the best, most important thing we can do for ourselves right now, because that helps the whole entire world, because then we're going to be vibrating in that higher energy of love and above, whatever that might be, and so being a superconductor, you know, what does it take? What do we need to cultivate? What is in the way of that? So I shared this last year, actually. I was out on a walk and I had gotten up in the morning and I'm like, am I cultivating love? Am I cultivating my path of heart? Am I expanding my heart energy? Am I, you know, is any of this working? Could you just like send me a sign? I need to know that I've been doing this for months and I'm kind of feeling a little discouraged right now. So please just send me a sign. So go out for my morning walk. I'm listening to the teachings of Don Juan on audiobook. And Don Juan is telling Carlos Castaneda, all paths lead nowhere. So you might as well choose a path of heart, because it's not going to lead you anywhere anyway, no matter what path you choose. So choose a path of heart, because then you'll at least have that high vibrational energy. You'll have that wealth of high vibrational energy in your body and your being. And you'll feel that love, that radiating love that is there. And that's a lot more fun than just going nowhere without the love part being included. And that helps them, you know, we want to make meaningful contributions, and we can do that better when we're from that place of heart. So a question for people to be with is, what activities and frame of mind feels healthy, wealthy, and wise to you? What activities and frame of mind and heart, we could add that to, because it's like, you know, they've literally found that there's a brain in the heart, and that it actually responds and does things much more quickly than our mind brain. Sure. But they communicate. So if our heart is aligned with what it is that we're doing, then our whole body can come into resonance with that. So really focusing on the heart is a big piece. So my statement that I've been using for quite a while now, for a few years actually, I am a superconductor of love. And I literally have added to this, because now I say, I'm a superconductor of love, light, joy, bliss, magic, and miracles. So that's my more expanded statement. But I started out with love, and then I started adding to that. Like, oh, I want to add to that. So if you want to add your own things to that, but at least do, you know, claim, proclaim, invoke, bring it forth in you, claim it as yours, of being a superconductor of love, because there's only 9,000 people on the planet who are vibrating with this high energy of love. It will change everything. That's the number we need for this to change everything. We don't even need 1% of almost 8 billion people. We just need 9,000.
Wow.
So, yeah, isn't that's like so cool. So if we have 9,000, it's just a small percentage of those electrons, when they come into that coherence and harmony, creates that lineup where everything else also comes into harmony with it. Mm-hmm. So we can have a huge impact. We have no idea sometimes how powerful we are when we're cultivating the power of love within us. So the power of metaphor as a cognitive superconductor helps us comprehend and utilize complex metaphysical conceptual possibilities that go way beyond ideas into powerfully feeling it and experiencing it in far more efficient and effective ways. So the efficient and effective ways is a Capricorn statement.
Right.
Like, how can we be the most effective and most efficient in what we're doing? So just a little bit more of the astrology here. We've got Jupiter and Saturn together in 2020. And they come together 3 times. I already said that the first one, April 4th, has already happened, June 30th and November 12th. Then on December 21st, we have Jupiter and Saturn. I'm sorry, this was Jupiter and Pluto. Jupiter and Saturn coming together for the first time in 20 years, and for the first time in hundreds of years in the sign of Aquarius. And so this is about new vision and possibility, tuning into what's on the leading edge, what's on the, what's the most innovative thing. We could say the dark side of this might be all of the artificial intelligence and, people wanting to be able to download their consciousness into some robot so that they never have to die.
Right.
Like, right. So moving away from our humanness, that would be like a shadow expression of that. But it's also, what are the greater possibilities for us? How can we use the technology of consciousness in our body to become the rainbow light body, to become the powerful expression of the masculine or feminine that we are here to be.
Wow.
And so the other thing is Jupiter's going to square Uranus on January 17th. And then Saturn square Uranus 3 times, February 17th, June 14th, and December 24th of 2021. And this is important because Uranus is all about disrupting the old structures. Whoa. And creating something new. And in Taurus, it's really about how, because it's an earth energy, and Taurus really represents the garden of earthly delight. So from 2018 to 2026, Uranus is in Taurus, amplifying the disruptive power to facilitate change of what has been. And we could say that includes how we value ourselves, how we value all life, how we receive and engage in intimate connections with others, how we receive and embrace or don't embrace, because some people don't, embrace pleasure, and how we extend the moment of pleasure for as long as possible without pain, and also without taking it from somebody. Mm-hmm. So it's like that realization that the earth is plentiful and there is enough for everyone. And there's more than enough for everyone to have a very pleasurable life. So we are really here to revolutionize the old earth perspective so that we can further inspire these new earth possibilities of living in a world where everyone's needs are met and no one is left behind, so to speak. Right. So that's the possibility that's going on. And when we look at what's happening with Jupiter square Uranus and Saturn square Uranus in 2021, that's what's coming. So just a little brief preview of some amazing events coming in the next year. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm going to pause here and just ask you, Kathy, did I answer your question? And do you have any other questions?
So if you could just for a moment, because I want you to talk about this as well. For people that don't know anything about astrology, when you say Saturn's going to square Uranus, what does that, I mean, it's like right now I can see that Uranus is kind of changing physical structures left and right. And that's going to go on till for at least 6 more years.
Until 2026. Yeah.
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 So what is it's like practically speaking, what does that mean?
Yeah. Right. So each planet is a teacher. When we look at the outer planets, we look at them as teachers, as guides, and as initiators. So they're helping us to grow and evolve in some way, right? Mm-hmm. So Uranus is disrupting the old so that something new can come in, and so it helps that way. And sometimes the disruption is painful. Mm-hmm. It hurts. It doesn't feel very good. And sometimes disruption is like, oh, thank God. Right. I'm finally done with that. Right. I'm getting on to something new, right? So it's like, oh, I feel like I've been liberated and freed from, and ultimately it is about freeing us from old things that are holding us back, but sometimes we're really attached to them. So when a planet comes along to square an outer planet, so say Saturn, that has to do with structure and form. Saturn and Uranus kind of are like at odds with each other in that Saturn wants structure and Uranus is like, oh, we want freedom.
Mhm.
And Saturn says, well, you can have a certain amount of freedom within the structure. And Uranus is like, yeah, but we need to expand that structure because it's way too limited. So that's
Okay.
essentially what's going on. And sometimes it can feel like conflict between the two, but ultimately they really are working together. So when we have squares, oppositions, and conjunctions, so a conjunction is when two planets are together. A square is when they're 90 degrees apart, and an opposition is when they're opposite each other. And so there's a relationship. And in the square, it's hard for them sometimes to see the benefit, one to see the benefit of the other. And it's actually easier in an opposition because they can look right at it.
Mhm. Right.
So the squares are happening a little bit off to the side, and it's like, you know, something's going on, but you're not seeing exactly what it is. You're not looking at directly head on. So, when these planets come along to activate Uranus, Jupiter and Saturn activate Uranus, Jupiter will amplify the Uranus effect and bring in a new vision, and Saturn will maybe try to slow it down just a little bit. But also it can help, right? So that it can help to make it something that we can actually experience in our middle world reality. Because if there's too much expansion, too much change going on, then it's hard to keep up with it. So Saturn can actually help us be able to integrate whatever those changes are and slow it down enough so that it's like, okay, now I can deal with this. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I think that gives people a nice overview of what we're not finished in 2020. We still have some adjustments to do.
Yeah. Yes, we're just getting started, really. I mean, we've been doing this for a while. Literally, there was a whole run up to 2012 and what everybody thought around that. But 2020, literally, astrologically, is far more intense than 2012 was.
Absolutely.
Just saying. And we can feel it. We can see it. We get that something big is going on.
So this one really intrigues me because this starts on my birthday. So talk.
Aha! Happy birthday.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so the Venus cycle, that's something very dear to my heart. Every 8 years, Venus returns to a starting place, like to about the same place it was in the sky 8 years prior. And also rises up as morning star and starts a new cycle that lasts about 19 months. So what we're going to have is a little lighter, more playful, you know, the rainbow goddess, the messenger, the new world storyteller coming onto the world stage on June 10 to January 14th of 2022. So cool. So just so you see the 5-pointed star, you know, of course I have, you know, the 5-pointed star behind me as well. But we've been in this cycle from November 1st of 2018 to June 9th of 2020. And then on June 10th, in some places on June 9th, I suppose it could actually be that you could see Venus rising into the morning sky. But the ancients always looked at Venus when she rose, and they could see her as the start of the new cycle. And similar to a lot of cultures that saw the new moon, the new lunar phase is when you could see the first crescent moon, not when the sun and the moon were together when you couldn't see the moon, right? So that was called the dark of the moon. And then when the moon became visible, that's when they would do their big ceremonies. So when Venus becomes visible, that's when we realize her new cycle has begun. And if you happen to be turning a multiple of 8 between June 10th of 2020 and January 14th of 2022, you're going to be in a Venus return. And this is a significant cycle for you. And it lasts 19 months. And so, you know, the age is 8, 16, 24, 32, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80, 88, 96, and 104. Right? So every 8 years. But it could be that, you know, this is a 19-month cycle. So it could be that you turn that 8 age really close to the June, you know, starting of this cycle. Or it happens, you know, as you're getting towards the end of the cycle. So you're either morning star or underworld Venus or evening star, all has significance and meaning. I'm an evening star, so I'm always at the tail end of the cycle. So it really starts almost a year and a half before my 8th birth. I just have my 64th birthday, so I'm just completing my Venus return right now. And so, pretty amazing. So what I wanted to share, and because of course the eclipse is happening right on the galactic cross that I showed you earlier. Well, we had Venus enter this area of the sky on April 3rd. And in fact, it was so close to the Pleiades, it looked like it was sitting inside the Pleiades. And that only can happen every 8 years. I saw it in 2012. I saw it in 2020. I hope to see it in 2028. Pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But what you're seeing here is the sacred hoop. So the sacred hoop with the cross in the center. This is a Native American symbol and represents the hoop of life. And there's a lot of stories and ideas and maybe even ceremonies that are being done about mending the sacred hoop. How do we mend the sacred hoop of life that we're all a part of, and we're all interconnected through the sacred hoop? Well, they saw that in the sky. I couldn't really make it a hoop quite, but there's the circle of stars with the cross in the center as the sacred hoop of stars. And it starts with the Pleiades, where Venus was on April 3, exact with the Pleiades in its closest conjunction that we'll see in 8 years. And then Venus rises with Aldebaran, this royal star, the Eye of the Bull, really powerful star that the ancients used as a way of demarcating different, like when the sun rose here at an equinox, at a solstice, that was a really insignificant time for them. So we have Venus rising is closest to this star, in alignment with this star in its 104-year cycle. And then on June 20th, of course, the eclipse at the cross. And then on July 31st, Venus returns to, these are the horns of the bull, between the horns of the bull. The Venus returns to where it started its retrograde. It goes direct on June 24th. It's been retrograde since May 12th, 40 days of a Venus retrograde, right? And then on August 7th, Venus leaves the sacred hoop. So from April 3rd to August 7th is extra long time. Usually it just speeds right through. But every 8 years, it hangs out here for a few months. So we've got that happening. Venus is on the cross August 7th, and then on September 26th, it's exiting the hoop. So it's really close to 6 months that it's hanging out inside the sacred hoop. Mm-hmm. That is just like, what the divine feminine, how are we creating healing, and how are we mending the hoop, and how are we bringing creative storytelling? How are we telling the new story? And one of the things I've been thinking about is that one of our stories is survival of the fittest, and that there's only a limited amount of resources, and we have to be really strong and fit and be competitive with each other in order to survive. That is an old story that is not actually true. And, Darwin only got that because he was like in a higher elite class than somebody who came up with a different theory at the same time. Right. That was more about how, cooperation and collaboration that helps us to survive and to grow and to evolve. So how do we write a new story now? How do we get past this old story that has created so much heartache in our world? So I feel like this is part of what Venus is wanting to bring to us at this time. And she's the rainbow goddess. Oh, so cool. So, and the rainbow representing the 7 chakras, and the Venus journey goes through the 7 chakras, releasing distortions, and then she goes back through the 7 chakras, reclaiming a healthy relationship to the 7 chakras. And she's also cultivating these many different aspects that she has. She's not just the rainbow goddess, she's the new world storyteller. She's the creative muse, and she's the one that inspires creative projects or creative ideas, that kind of thing. She's a master networker. So she loves to be socially engaged. So something's going to have to change in our world as she comes onto the world stage. Right. So that we can have maybe better, more social connection going on, and have fun with it and be more playful with it and that kind of thing. She's a psychopomp, meaning she is a guide for souls. She can take you where you need to go for your initiation. She's a trickster and Heyoka. She likes to play tricks on us so we aren't so serious. And so, we could say, what's the humor? How can we laugh more? Laughter is the best medicine, as they say. And what's the cosmic joke that's been going on here? Right? To wake us up and help us remember that maybe things aren't as serious as they appear to be. She's the rainbow goddess in the balance chakra. She's the magical child. So there's that playful fun aspect to her. She's the divine messenger. So we could even ask ourselves, what is our higher self trying to tell us now? What is that message coming in from our higher self? So this journey, this 19-month journey with Venus, is designed to help us get to a better, healthier, more alive and connected way of being with the rainbow goddess, with the Gemini goddess in all her different expressions. So yay, a little light news.
Yeah.
For this particular time. So I want to close by sharing a chant to activate our rainbow light body.
Oh,
and
wow.
This is something that came to me. I was looking at, Nikola Tesla came up with this idea that the numbers 3, 6, and 9 are the keys to the universe, to really understanding the universe. And there's a whole lot of mathematical, stuff we could look at around that. And we have looked at that in the Venus alchemy classes that we do. But one of the things I always think of when I hear 369 is the little chant that I did as a kid. 369, the goose drank wine, the monkey chewed tobacco on the streetcar line, the line broke, the monkey choked, and they all went to heaven in a little rowboat. I think we jump rope to that or something. So I'm like, oh, wait, there has to be a chant here that could be like activating the rainbow light body, because it's got the keys of 369, these magical numbers. And, 3 is the triangle, 6 is the hexagram, and 9 is the Enneagram. And there's all the sacred geometry that's connected into these numbers and how everything adds up to them. And, it's just amazing, something worth checking out if you don't know about it. And so I started playing with this, and I came up with this chant. And I do it every day, sometimes several times a day, because I love it so much. Because I'm all about activating my... What?
I said, it's so cute. I can't wait to hear you say it.
Oh, right. 369, now's the time. I'm actively living in a new timeline. The time is now. I'm living how I'm meant to be in my radiant rainbow light body.
That's beautiful. So cute. Much better than the going to heaven in a little rowboat.
Little rowboat. and getting choked, right?
Wow.
So I just have had so much fun with this, and I've been sharing it. I've shared it with a few people who actually know the 369, the goose drank wine aspect of it. And then when they hear this, they're like, oh, that is so great. So I wanted to share this with everybody as a way to, how are we birthing the new earth? We're activating our rainbow light body. We're activating this we have to get it from our inside out, right? So if we're calling this forth, if we're singing it into our life, if, the Australian Aboriginal people had the song lines, they were singing the earth awake all the time, or into being, into a certain way of being. So this is just one way we might do that, and it's kind of fun.
It is very fun. Very cool. So I have one.
Right? So yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I have one more question, because I want to bring this down to really basic, because this has been way out there, little Miss Aquarius, but
I am a sky dancer. What can I say?
It's I've had the benefit of being with you for the past 2-3 years and hearing all of this over and over again. So I knew something was coming. Just like you, I didn't know what it was. And quite frankly, this feels a lot more gentle than what I mean, at least it did when we were just getting to shelter in place. That felt tons more gentle than what it could have been. Now things are feeling a little bit more dicey. But as we,
Right.
like for a newbie that, you know, is just learning about the influences and how we affect, you know, we inform the energies as much as they inform us. How can we engage all of this through ceremony or intention or prayer so that we can really be powerful, and, you know, use our
Yeah.
energy as creators?
So I just share with you what I've been doing so that, and you know, and really people need to find something that works for them, because what I'm doing may not work for everybody, but this little chant is something I do. I start my day with it. I also have been toning. I've been doing affirmations. I've been chanting other mantras and things as well, and with the intention that I am creating the new earth inside of me, so that it then radiates out. So that change is from the inside out. And so you don't even have to really follow all of the astrology that's going on to know that this is the time. Like if we're going to do it, if not now, when? Like if if we don't do it now, it may be too late. We may not have an earth
Right,
to,
right.
to, you know, right? So we need to find something that is alive for us, that is a little practice we can do, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half hour, an hour a day, or some days we do maybe 10 minutes and then another day we do an hour, whatever that looks like. And I've literally written out affirmations that I can chant. This is one of them. I've been calling in the directions as part of my morning ceremony of, you know, starting my day. And I really noticed it's like people have been saying to me in the last few months, well, when I could see people,
Right.
we're just like, your energy is so amazing. It's so bright and so alive and so up. And they just want, it's like, I love standing next to you. I'm
Right.
like, oh, thank you for saying that. Like, you know, not everybody, these are total strangers that are saying this to me.
Right.
So I know it works from that. When I get that kind of feedback, I know it's working. And so that means then, because my intent is that I am a superconductor of love, and that that is the energy I'm putting out into the world. And that if other people are picking up on that, then it's true. I'm doing it.
Yes.
So whatever it is that you can do to create a statement, you know, an invocation, a little ceremony to make and give gratitude as if it's already happened. I am so grateful. I'm living in the new earth now. That is one of my statements. You know, I love how fun it is to be in this new earth energy now, right? Like it's, even if there's times in the day I don't really feel that way. Like, oh my God, this is happening. But if I keep coming back to that, and I keep coming back to that, and I keep coming back to that, I realize that there are many ways I already am living it more fully than ever. And even if I still have those moments. So we just have to develop a practice that allows us to keep coming back to that intention and putting our attention on it, and then taking the actions that make a vision board, you know, have an altar, all the ceremonial things that, you know, a lot of people know how to do. And this is stuff we teach people in our Venus Alchemy groups, is to do these things. Keep a journal about things. And if you've got things that are really like tearing you apart or really upsetting you, journal them. Because you'll get deeper insight, and ask the part of yourself that knows what are the answers for you in this challenging situation. And so that can be helpful as well. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Kaylin,
Yay.
this has been.
And, go out and look up at the sky too.
Yes.
Go look at the stars. Go be with the moon and the planets, and just go be there. And you don't have to know what it means. Just open to receive whatever messages they have for you.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
Kaylin, this has been amazing.
So I just wanted to say, and I know Kathy, you're going to post this.
No,
so
I'm
just
yeah. Keep going.
So, oh no, I just wanted to say, this has been fun. Thank you. I probably talked way over my time. I don't know.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Nobody ever talks over their time. You have as much time as you want.
All right, cool.
But thank you so much. It's been very, very informative. And, you know, it really helps us to know that there is a plan, and we are going to come out on the other side. And now we kind of have a path to follow. So Thank you for that. This has been awesome.
Yes. Thank you. And I just also want to say it is important to feel what you feel. So if you're hurt, you're angry, you're depressed, you're whatever that is, find ways to feel it and then let it go. Because it's not about wallowing in it either.
Right. Right.
But it is giving yourself permission to be where you're at and to go through that, because it has something to teach you. It has something to tell you. And then you can transmute it and transform it, because this is all about alchemy, right?
Yeah.
How do we bring the new earth about? By the alchemy we are creating within ourselves.
Yeah.
So Kathy, thank you. I'm so glad you're doing this summit. It's such a great gift for everybody, and I'm just delighted to be a part of it.
Thank you, Kaylin. This has been awesome.